been a ride. I guess I had to go to that place to get to this one. Now, some of you might still be in that place. You're trying to get out.
Welcome to the program, everyone. This is Deborah Tavares with StopTheCrime.net on the Rinse Radio Network. Today we're going to be talking about the illusion of education. And here's a quote that John D. Rockefeller said when he created the General Education Board in 1903 to dispense Rockefeller funds to education. Now, it's very important to be reminded it was the Rockefellers that created the illusion of peak oil scarcity and the illusion that petroleum came from dead dinosaurs so that they could amass a family fortune. And as many of you know, Rockefellers have merged with Rothschild in 2011. But back then, John D. Rockefeller said, quote, "I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers." And then more recently, we have a quote from former CIA Director William Casey, and this is in 1981. Quote, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false." Well, we're there. All of you that are listening and that have been listening to the programs understand that we have been sold into a virtual reality of illusion. I've referred frequently, too, to the report, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs before I bring on my guest today to remind you of the illusion and the deception and the misdirection of knowledge and how we have all been enslaved by lack of knowledge. That is the purpose of the education, the federal education construct, is to keep us enslaved by lack of knowledge. Just as we have now been fear-mongered through the massive media assault about water scarcity, when in fact, like petroleum, water is a renewable energy resource. You can learn more by going to primarywater.org. primarywater.org. But Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars tells us this. In the interest of future world order, peace, and tranquility, it was decided to privately wage a quiet war against the American public, against every man, every woman, and every child, with the ultimate objective of permanently shifting the natural and social energy, the wealth, of the undisciplined, that's all of us, and irresponsible many, into the hands of the self-disciplined, responsible, worthy few. In order to implement this objective, it was necessary to create, secure, and apply new weapons, which, as it turned out, were a class of weapons so subtle and sophisticated in their principle of operation, the public appearance, as to earn for themselves the name silent weapons. In order to achieve total predictability, the low-class elements of society would need to be brought under total control. We must all be housebroken, trained, and assigned a yoke and long-term social duties from a very early age before we have the opportunity to question the matter. And in order to achieve such conformity, the lower-class family unit must be disintegrated by a process of increasing preoccupation of the parents and the establishment of government-operated daycare centers for the occupationally orphaned children. The quality of education given to the lower class must be of the poorest sort. With such an initial handicap, even the brightest of all of us, the lower class individuals, have little if any hope, of extricating themselves from their assigned lot in life. This form of slavery is essential to maintain some measure of societal order, peace, and tranquility for the ruling upper class. We have been massively conspired against, and for many, many, many decades. We must now all start to understand how government, politicians, and policies really work. And I'm, again, quoting from Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. There are also some very important aspects of the intention for education in the NWO exposed by an insider in 1969. And you can go to the Source Document tab on StopTheCrime.net and download both the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document, only 44 pages, and the NWO Exposed 1969 by an insider. All the documents that, of course, we discuss on the program can be downloaded for free. However, if some of you are unable to download, you may contact a print shop, and for the cost of printing, they will send you these documents by calling area code 707-586-9558. Once again, area code 707-586-9558. I'm going to be bringing on my guest, and I'm delighted that David Rodriguez could join us today, because education is upmost in many people's minds now with the continual anti-approach to the Common Core that many parents have brought forth across the country. I know many of you are probably hearing the increased opposition to Common Core, the new curriculum in the schools. I'm just going to say this about Common Core right off the top. Even if you were okay with your children being misinformed and taught fraudulent science of global warming, which is not a reality, even if you were okay with that, even if you were okay with the massive data collection that each child is being put through with the manipulative methodologies built in a covert system to literally track and monitor and identify each individual child, even if you were okay with all of that, you shouldn't be okay with the massive assault of the wireless laptops that are being deployed in every classroom across the United States. Many schools in France and elsewhere are not allowing wireless technology for the younger children. We know we have military documents on StopTheCrime.net. We've done many shows about the weaponized technology of pulsed microwave frequencies. The silent weapons system is comprised of these assaults upon all of us and on our children. This is causing massive cell breakage and cell death. It is destroying the eggs of the little girls when they're in school, so that should they have a child, the likelihood of deformity has increased. So even if you're okay with the curriculum, you should not be okay with the weaponized technology that is being advanced on our kids. So with that, I want to bring on David. David Rodriguez is the publisher of The Underground History of American Education by John Taylor Gatto. For all of you that have enjoyed John's YouTubes over the years, such as myself, and of course we frequently recommend Weapons of Mass Instruction. Again, Weapons of Mass Instruction by John Taylor Gatto. David is also the founder of Education Options, which is a nonprofit organization that promotes private schooling and homeschooling. And after selling his business at the age of 26, moved to South Korea, where he taught English in private schools. His business background includes work in the fields of insurance, biotechnology, and that's interesting, and dentistry. He was born and raised in California, where he attended public school, just as myself, born and raised in California. He received a business degree from San Jose State University. His newest project is to republish and release the 2015 edition of the Underground History of American Education this summer. So to stay connected with John's work and to also receive a free article that he just recently published within the last 6 months from Harvard, just contact JohnTaylorGatto.com. That's John Taylor, Taylor, Gatto, Gatto.com. So, David, I really want to thank you for joining the program today. I know that you're working directly with John, and I'm sure that you are being very instrumental in getting his work out as we move forward in these days of increasing demise of the educational structure. So welcome to the program.
Well, it's an honor to be here, and we're looking forward to talking about some solutions.
Absolutely. We actually were talking about that off air, and I think we were in fairly unison agreement about what some of those solutions would be. And I know that we also realize that because all of us are in a very difficult time in our lives, learning the reality of reality. And I know that we talked about how literally heartbreaking and how depressing our reality is as we start to learn the truth. And certainly I know that you agree that our children are being massively set up in a structure that is going to make victimization a given of our kids. They're not being taught the weather weapons. They're not being taught the reality of politics and what happened even with the Federal Reserve. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree, and you got to understand that the history books inside the public schools have omitted so much information that you cannot expect a young person at the most formative years of their life to learn this information by themselves. They need support from you, from myself, from everybody listening in the audience right now. They need leadership from you guys to help reveal what's going on. I mean, what's going on with the Federal Reserve? You know, this organization that it sounds like it's a government organization, but it's not a government organization. And so that's how they're able to fund all the wars. But for the educational aspect of it, I think the most important thing in our short time here is for parents to realize that the system is the problem. The teachers are not the problem. The people in there are good people. But when you institutionalize forced schooling, and John Taylor Gatto goes through much of what he discovered in 30 years of teaching in the Upper West Side, New York, with rich kids and poor kids the same. He got the New York State Teacher of the Year Award in 1991, and he got the New York City Teacher of the Year Award in 1988 through 91. So this guy has all the experience that what we're learning there is obedience there. Yeah. So he talks about what we're actually learning, and then what we're learning is the obedience. How to have habits of reaction to authority. So that's why the incredible things that happen in schools, why do they keep on happening? Because learning is not the key. So without going long about that, the solution in my mind, and why I am excited to be working with John and started my organization, Education Options, is we have to pull our kids out of the system so they can start learning to think for themselves. And one of the most important things we all can do now is help teach our kids to ask questions. Right? Let's not be people who just take orders blindly. And this is what happened in Nazi Germany. They had all this education. It was the Prussian education system that came over through Horace Mann in 1852. And now we're at the end of it after 150 years, And just like Nazi Germany, Hitler came to power, there were all these students who had all this energy and idealism, but they had no jobs, right? Look what's going on in 2015. So what's going to happen is that if the political, hero, like we saw Obama do, or whoever the next person is going to be, he can galvanize the people and direct that energy. Oh gosh, people through the education system just learn how to be followers. Like you just gave the Rockefeller quote. I mean, these guys have planned it out, and you can go, to the 1920s and 30s with Columbia Teachers College, John Dewey, Thorndike. I mean, it's quite alarming. So the main thing, and we were talking about it also, is that this information can be depressing sometimes. I gotta tell you, I felt down sometimes. The more I learn about the reality of my world, I'm like, man. So let me just kind of reframe everything. This is not a fearful conversation. This is a very empowering conversation, and we're not coming in fear. We're coming in love. So if you agree, put your hand on your heart and say, I love myself. I love mankind. And we're going to figure a way out of this. And number one is to pull the kids out of school. And so you can do that through homeschooling. You can do it through private schooling. There's various methods.
Well, also, we've talked about what many parents now are doing, and that's unschooling. I think what's happened is the parents have been shell-shocked by the illusion that they're not capable of teaching their children. And so the parents are afraid of the words homeschooling because many parents have not had the education that they believe the teachers have had, and they don't feel capable. But I would recommend that people type in and do a search on unschooling. In other words, it's not about dragging the disinformation structures information home over your threshold and teaching your children the false realities and the reason that you're pulling them out in the first place. And I think, David, we also were talking about the idea that the parents need to catch up on what they were not taught in school as well. This is a learning opportunity not only for our kids, but for ourselves as well, because the destruction mechanism is on full throttle now. And when I look at the NASA war plan that we've had on Stop the Crime for quite some time, they talk about how there will be the demise of the U.S. underclass. This is on page 24 of the NASA war document, and how they will equalize the haves and have-nots. And the world is going to be changed politically and militarily in ways that we can't even imagine, and they already have. On page 26, for example, of the NASA war document, it says by the year 2025, 40% of private and 15% of public colleges and universities are expected to close down due to web-based competition. And then on page 27, this is very disturbing, but this is the level of advanced technologies that we have been sadly not taught about as well. On page 27 of the NASA document, it says the ultimate education approach, plug and play, where they'll be using direct silicon or other such devices to connect directly to the brain, where there will be very fast uploads, education in minutes instead of many years. I'm not going to spend time there because this is really going towards the transhumanism agenda. Literally the new definition of what is being sculpted and shaped as being human. But we have to learn quickly. We have been programmed. We have been massively mind-controlled. And Common Core is standardizing everything that our children are going to learn. And that's the greatest threat to all of us, is the standardization across the board. They even say, as you know, David, that you can relocate elsewhere across the country, and the program of Common Core will be the same. So parents, of course, who spent more money moving to areas of higher value, property-wise, to get into a system they thought had a better education system. That's not the case anymore with Common Core. And in fact, David, I'm looking at a letter that was sent here in Northern California by the teachers, and it was very, very disturbing. It said, "We love teaching your children. Help us strengthen your child's education and keep the experienced teachers in your district. Our students," they say, what's going on? Unproven programs are being implemented by the district administration, pulling teachers out of the classroom for up to 18 days. No accountability for the multiple outside consultants. And I just want to add right now, David, because I know that we talked about it, and I think you are very much aware also about the consultants that are hired by our school boards to come in. They're paid, and it is called the Delphi technique. The teachers, as all of us are, we've been Delphied into much of the position that we find ourselves in now by a very devious method of creating predetermined outcomes that lead us to believe we've contributed public dialogue. And there's increasing frustration with the people in general on every level, school board meetings, county supervisors, local city council meetings, where people are realizing they're not being heard. And they're still wondering why. And the solution is to research Delphi, DELPHI, and understand it was set up by the RAND, R-A-N-D, the RAND Corporation, which they have their offices in Santa Monica, California. So we have a lot to learn, and we as parents must learn in order to teach our children to protect them so they do not become violated victims of a system moving them in to a virtual reality, a reality that is not real. David, we have a break coming up, and when we get to the other side of this break, I certainly would like you to discuss some of John's approaches to these solutions as well. Thank you. We're talking with David Rodriguez, who is working with John Taylor Gatto on helping him get his articles out. And again, everyone can get the latest article by going to johntaylorgatto.com and request the Harvard article. David, what does John think about the universal preschool that's now being implemented, or I should say deployed, upon the children from ages 3 to 4 under the guise that they now must become preschool ready? What are his thoughts on that?
John thinks it's a hideous program. The fact that you're dealing with age 3 and 4-year-olds, he said that the social utopians thought they could start at age 5 and 6, but now they want to go for the younger kids and literally remove their free will. And John's even has a video on YouTube. He says, what could be a more radical idea than putting your kids under the care of total strangers and have them work on their minds without your parental supervision? He said, I mean, what's more radical than that idea? So he does not like that idea of universal schooling. He's a big proponent of unschooling. He does not believe the system is reformable, and in his mind, you're wasting your energy trying to reform this institution. But I do want to give you a definition and start off with a positive note, because there are solutions. And as Buckminster Fuller said, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. You have to create a new model which makes the old model obsolete. And one of the exciting things...
Absolutely.
And one of the things that John said was that a true education doesn't cost a penny. And what he means by that is that the things that you can learn as an individual, you don't need to be in a classroom. You don't need to be learning from some expensive tutor and some of his philosophies. First, I want to give you the definition of education. This is from John Taylor Gatto, New York State Teacher of the Year. Whatever an education is, it should make you a unique individual, not a conformist. It should furnish you with an original spirit with which to tackle the big challenges. It should allow you to find values which will be your roadmap through life. It should make you spiritually rich, a person who loves whatever you are doing, wherever you are, whomever you are with. It should teach you what is important, how to live, and how to die. And so this is coming from a gentleman in the classroom for 30 years. And if you approve, I'd like to kind of develop that idea more on what an educated person is. And this is from his book, A Different Kind of Teacher. And he just goes through a couple of them, so I'll just go through it here. He says, an educated person writes his own script through life. He is not a character in anyone else's play, nor does he mouth the words of any intellectual's utopian fantasy. He is self-determined. Time does not hang heavily on an educated person's hands. He can be alone. He is never at a loss for what to do with time. An educated person knows his rights and knows how to defend them. An educated person knows the ways of the human heart. He is hard to cheat or fool. An educated person possesses useful knowledge, how to build a house, a boat, how to grow food, etc. An educated person possesses a blueprint of personal value, a philosophy. This philosophy tends toward the absolute. It is not plastic or relative, altering to suit circumstances. Because of this, an educated person knows at all times who he is, what he will tolerate, where to find peace. But at the same time, an educated person is aware of and respects community values and strange values. An educated person can form healthy attachments wherever he is because he understands the dynamics of relationships. An educated person accepts and understands his own mortality and its seasons. He understands that without death and aging, nothing would have any meaning. An educated person learns from all his ages, even from the last minutes of his life. An educated person can discover the truth for himself. He has intense awareness of the profound significance of being and the profound significance of being here. An educated person can figure out how to be useful to others, and in trading time, insight, and service to meet the needs of others, he can earn the material things he needs to sustain a wholesome life. An educated person has the capacity to create new things, new experiences, and new ideas. So thank you for your patience on that one. But so John's idea in the classroom was to turn his classroom into a workshop. And one of the most interesting aspects, what I feel is that one day a week, he would have his students, which were junior high school, 8th graders, one day a week, he would have them leave school for the day and go pursue some natural interest, what they have. So one guy was a comic book person, and so this guy's writing comic, drawings in class, and John says, hey man, what are you doing? You don't even know what you're doing. Why don't you go to the library, spend the whole day in the library reading about comics and studying the way comics are written and, do a report on that. Or one girl, she wanted to be a Olympic swimmer, right? She was an athlete. So what was the project that she self-selected? Well, she decided to go around the city, New York City, and map out all the different pools, the public swimming pools. And this is how big the pool is. They have diving boards, no diving lights, how's the parking, how's the cost. And she actually created a resource, which is funny, where a major publisher of a magazine wanted to have her publish that resource. And she was offered like $500 in exchange that their publisher could put their name on it. They wouldn't say it came from this 8th grade girl. So she actually rejected it and said, no, it's my resource. I want my name on it or they can't have it. Right? So there's all these different ways that if you dig inside of a person, you can find out what is their passion, what is their interest. And this is what a real education is about. It's something that nobody can tell you. You can ask people, but John realized that what they're teaching at the elite private boarding schools were some critical things which they're not teaching in the public school system. One of the most important things that your audience will find valuable is something called the active literacies. And we all know about literacy, right? Reading, being able to read. But the active literacies, it was something from the old classical education where you learn not only to read, but how to speak in public well, or how to write well. And the reason you would do that is because, let's say you're a genius, you're a really smart person, but you cannot communicate your ideas or your mission or your vision to others. How are you going to grow an organization? How are you going to make an impact in society? And you can't.
That's exactly right. In fact, we're coming in on a break, and what you're just speaking about right now is so beautifully discussed in John's YouTube, which everyone can listen to. Weapons of Mass Instruction, again by John Taylor Gatto. I'm so happy, David, that you brought this to light, because this is the beauty and the empowerment of what education needs to be, and not the restriction of our minds through the intention of evil. We'll pick this up on the other side of the break. We're joined by David, and we're talking about education and the lack of real education. And just prior to the break, David, you read this really empowering list of where people really want to aspire through education. And that was very, very uplifting. And, of course, all of the listeners that are listening right now certainly want to advantage these opportunities for their children, despite the fact that we are being literally attacked with a structure that is disengaging our minds and sabotaging our mental activities. And we need to know that this structure is in place, and it is discouraging technical activity. And we have to break past all of this, and the only way we can is by understanding the assault mechanisms and then going forward with what we want for our children, the truth and the love of life and the benefits of self-empowerment through aspiring and doing what you want to be. So we are in, again, the last segment, David. So I'd like you to talk about more of the gifts and empowerment.
Absolutely. And one of the topics that John speaks about a lot is that we are our own prisoner. And what is this? This is also known as learned helplessness. And so if you think about a circus, right, these big elephants, we're talking about training elephants, right? As a baby elephant, it's very weak. It has a rope tied against the post. It can't break it, and it learns that it cannot break the rope. But imagine, in 5 years, when this elephant is huge and strong, they still use the same rope to tie it up against the same post, and this huge elephant could easily break this rope and be free. And that's the same thing with your mind and my mind. We learned that we were weak, that we didn't have any creative genius, we didn't have imagination, and actually it was squeezed out of us. So if you're listening and you have a child who's 7, 8, or 9, this area or younger, you can still reignite and keep their passion and their enthusiasm, keep that alive. And each year, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, it gets harder and harder. And so for Deborah and myself and anyone who went to public school, we actually have to deprogram ourselves, because the question isn't if we're being programmed. The question is who is doing the programming. Is it the TV? Is it the mainstream media? Is it myself and my own values, my own goals and visions of my life? Because the reality for me, and the most empowering thing that I could share with you, is that nobody gets out alive. Let's just all accept that right now, and let's use today, this moment, to advance our life towards our goal, to our family, to love and joy and empowerment and growth and keep passing the torch. Just like Deborah's been doing this for many years, there's a lot of people out there doing that. And I'll tell you one thing right now. This information can get out. You, this individual listening right now, you can start your own YouTube channel. You can start your own blog. Can you believe, for the first time in history, how easy it is to start your own TV channel? And you can connect with somebody on the other side of this planet for free, for Skype. I mean, this is revolutionary. So the most important thing is that we have to take this information, not get depressed by it, right? Because it's some heavy-duty information. Take that, transmute it into some positive energy, and go out there and say, okay, I might not know how to homeschool, or I might not know how to, teach my kids, but I'm going to learn. There's people like John Gatto. There's people like John Holt. All these incredible people out there, and you can go to some of these resources. You can go to johntaylorgatto.com, educationrevolution.org, alternativeschool.com, hsc.org. There's Charlotte Isabet. There's all these incredible pioneers out there who can help you. And sometimes they'll do
exactly
it for...
right. And in the meantime, I think, David, it is important for the parents to understand what the program is about today, and it is about empowerment and breaking free from the shackles. But you won't know what you're breaking free from unless you understand the intentions of plans that were put in place to enslave us by lack of knowledge. And we do have a link on stopthecrime.net on the home page right underneath the banner. And it's in blue, and it says Kids for Profit. Kids for Profit. I would recommend that everyone go there and understand why you must unschool your children and why you can enjoy the learning, the opportunity to also educate yourselves with the lack of knowledge that you were not, sadly, dispensed by in your school. And when you mentioned televisions, and of course we know that televisions and flicker rates, etc., are all for mind control. In fact, there was a very interesting quote that came out of a lecture in New York City in 1995, and they talked about how that would be the year of massive doses of electronic mind control and programming for thought intrusion and brain biogenetic manipulations. And that would commence in an increasingly large scale. This was back in 1995. And they said at this point, it's been fully field tested, and operation is now complete, and experimentation is over. And they caution, they say, beware of televisions, computers. Now we're talking wireless. Beware of televisions, computers, movies, radios, and phones. Also books and magazines. In fact, another very important aspect of what you did mention is how our history has been subverted in the textbooks. Our realities have been subverted in the textbooks. They've been rewritten. In fact, in the NWO Exposed by an Insider 1965, you will empower yourself in learning how there have been groups tasked to go through the country and steal books out of libraries so that they would deny us that information. So this is a wonderful opportunity to learn with your kids the reality and enjoy life as it is in its real form, no longer being maneuvered and manipulated into the chaos that is creating the fear that is necessary for us to be led into consent. So we're here with maybe 6 more minutes left in the program, David, and I certainly want you to talk about other aspects of protocols, anything in addition to what you've already said. In fact, maybe a little bit of conversation, if you could, about the free article, the Harvard article that John recently wrote. Could you tell the listeners a little bit about what that would entail?
Absolutely. So the article is called Advice from Harvard, 10 Skills for success in the global economy. And I'll give you a couple of them right now. It's about a 3.5-page article. You can go to johntaylorgatto.com and get for free. The first one, according to Harvard School of Government, number one, most important skill, the ability to define problems without a guide. Number two, the ability to ask questions that challenge common assumptions. Number three, the ability to work without guidance. 4, ability to work absolutely alone. Number 5, ability to persuade others that yours is the right course. 6, ability to debate issues and techniques in public. And I'll just give you 6 of the 10 there. You can go to the website and pick up that article. But as you can tell, with technology, more and more people are going to be self-employed. And I think this was another corporate report that said by 2030, 50% of employment in the United States will be either independent contracting or entrepreneurship. So the sea is parting, and for the people who take responsibility and are dedicated to reality, there's going to be opportunity. And for the people who don't, it's going to be hard and difficult because, I mean, what kind of work can you do if you can't think for yourself? I mean, you can only do...
Well, David, I really espouse the idea of people being able to be self-sufficient and learning how to grow vegetable gardens and being self-reliant. We were pulled off of the farms. We have become consumers that have created these massive profits in these global markets for those that are controlling all the money at this point. And when you look forward at some of the reports that we have found, for example, one that we found out of the Ministry of Defense out of the UK, their assessment for the year 2040 is certainly the weaponized weather consequences and how that will be used, the weaponization of weather, to literally force migration of populations into dense mega cities. And the dense mega cities will hold tremendous concerns and threats and dangers. This is in these documents. This is what they want to do, and this is the importance of education. Learning what these controllers want to do and figuring out how you will not engage in their plans. Because their plans are eliminating the creativity of what it is to be human. Literally, they want a slave, not even an enslavement of people anymore. They're literally moving into robots and cyborgs along the way, but a complete control of every energy on the planet. And we are energy. We are frequencies. We are energy, as they want control of all the resources. So when you look at these documents and share them with your children, not out of fear, but out of the opportunity to figure out how they can be participating in unraveling this and making their lives account for something. Work on getting this information out. David, I really want to thank you for joining the program. For everyone that's listening, we'll get some of the items that David referred to posted on our Hot Radio Show topics at the homepage of stopthecrime.net. And again, thank you so much. We'll have you back on. We'll love to keep in touch with the latest work that John is getting out. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're listening to the Rense Radio Network, nationwide and worldwide on the net and at rense.com.